to engender hatred against Germans in support of the war effort was highly successful. But there was another, equally important aspect to the domestic propaganda campaign. If every adventure story needs a villain, it also needs a hero.
If there aren't enemies, you make enemies. If you can't bring yourself to have a showdown, or it's impractical because of atom bombs with the Soviet Union and have a big war, or you might lose, then you have these proxy wars through the CIA working into Nicaragua, and you justify this stuff by
recognition of your resilience and an appreciation of your dedication and continuing contributions to the service, despite injuries incurred in the line of duty in Havana, Cuba. I've read this so many times because it's on the award that hangs on my wall.
I don't think any of them realized what a big deal it was until we started talking to people and telling them our by building up this communist antichrist and the threats to our national security, and we cannot afford to let Central America go communist before it was Southeast Asia go communist. And so it's to justify, as I say, this craving for violence. It's like football players that need a game.
John, this
The night of my event, March 17th, 2017, I was standing at the kitchen window. I was washing dishes. And in the midst of washing the dish, all of a sudden, I felt like I was being struck with something.
I made about when it's driving the mill. Uncle Sam say he travel east and travel west. Uncle Sam say he believe he know the best. Uncle Sam says, Uncle Sam says, Uncle Sam says, you got to bottle love and go.
brings in another aspect which I'd like to get into, and that is the disinformation game, which we see over and over and over. Part of the way to get the American people to accept this is to
and it was an overwhelming sense of anxiety, pressure, completely inexplicable, and then pain that I've never felt before in my life. All of a sudden, I heard what one of the security officers had said to someone else just a couple of days before. Look, we don't know what's happening.
Creel estimated that 72 million copies of 30 different booklets about American ideals were sent across the United States, with millions more sent abroad. In addition to influencing the minds of Europeans, the goal was to redefine for the home population the very concept of what it meant to be American. The new
introduced just absolute lies, which they now call disinformation. But we've seen it time and again. The story of the Libyan hit squads, which we talked about on a previous program, turned out to be absolute balderdash, a story fabricated by, in this instance,
but if you think something's happening, get off the X. And I heard that in my head, get off the X. And it was almost like I had been unplugged and a spell was lifted and I moved. And that was it. I kind of just walked down the hall.
New American would not interpret events from what Creel called a class or sectional standpoint, but rather as a unified collective. In this manner, the people could be herded into one white-hot mass instinct. Previously, military action by the United States had been justified under the pretense
the Israeli press. And yet, you know, I saw David Brinkley about 4 months ago on a TV program saying, and yeah, these Libyans are the people who are sending hit squads over to try to kill our president. And the killing of the Pope, the assassination, all
in a daze. And by that point, we had all heard the stories in the embassy of things that were happening.
It is mysterious, but you know, there are a couple things from that reporting, that there is some place of blame, or at least
of maintaining order, protecting American interests, and bringing civilization to the savages. Now, the word civilization would transmute into democracy.
You don't have to hesitate on Sam say. You got it by love and go. Next number is called 192. I'm Sam baby, don't
these things, the Nicaraguan atrocities, all these terrible killings and atrocities in Nicaragua, Covert Action Information Bulletin, some other people have gone into these stories and they trace them back, even sending people overseas into the field. They trace.
looking seriously at Russia. And then the other is, it's not just a very disturbing high-pitched noise, but there might even be voices or a message, a continual message that people have been victimized by, you know, this sound, that, you know, there's this kind of messaging coming from it. What more do we know about?
Marshall McLuhan, the Canadian communications theorist, once said that if a fish could talk and you could ask a fish, what's the most obvious element of your environment? The last thing that the fish would say would be water. That's the last thing the fish would notice. And it's true about any culture. Those things that are most powerful and most obvious to an outsider don't get seen by the people swimming in their water. Americans just got...
Back at every occasion, they find where it starts, and it's either the CIA or a CIA operative overseas, and then they get it into the international wire services and it's picked up. And then once it's splashed as headphone,
or who is adding any credence to that?
Yeah, there are a number of it's really fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
There are a number of countries, including the former Soviet Union and now Russia, that have microwave weapon programs going back decades. There's some evidence that they've been used in other countries against U.S. diplomats. That this was a
God's chosen people. This goes back as far as back to 1630, where John Winthrop on the Arabella, coming from England, the United States, said we're a city on a hill. It's not an accident that in the campaign, debates and stumps of the
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it. Write for Pollution Booklet, Box 1771, Radio City Station, New York.
Very